Welcome back, friends. Let's move on to the next topic, that is CSS selectors. So what exactly is a CSS selector? A selector in CSS is basically this way using which you can style a specific element on your HTML page. So what does it mean? Let's go back to Sublime and understand this. So we are back on Sublime Text. Let's first create a new file and let's save it as selector demo.html. Let's quickly add the HTML tags. Let's add a head, a title which will say selector demo, and a body. The body will say, for our example, we are going to use three different h3 tags. This will be first one, h3, second one, h3, third one. Save. In fact, let's do one more thing. Let's add a link to our CSS file. CSS. Great. Let's save it. Go to your project folder and open it. And as you can see, this is how our page looks. So now let's take an example. What we want is, we want to change the font color of the second h3 from black to red. So up until now, whenever we wanted to change or add any CSS properties of a particular HTML element, we used to do it in our CSS file. So let's open our CSS file. This is our CSS file, and over here, this is h3. It has a background color of yellow. So suppose if I want to make it or give it a color of red, I would have done it like this. Save, reload. But now you can see a problem. Once you specify any property to the element, it gives the property to all the elements present on the web page. But we don't want that. What we want is, we want to individually control each of the elements so that we can style them. So here comes the CSS selector. There are two main selectors in CSS. We'll discuss the first one of them. It's called an ID. An ID can be considered like a roll number. Like you guys have a roll number in your college. So even though 2 or 3 or more students have same name, yet they can be differentiated by their roll numbers, because that is always unique. So similarly, on your HTML page or document, you can also assign IDs to similar HTML elements so that you can differentiate them while using CSS. Let's take an example. What I want to do is, I want to assign all three of them different IDs like this. So ID is basically an attribute to an HTML element which is assigned like this. First, ID is equal to second, and ID is equal to third. Save. Always remember, you can have only one ID in one page. Like, you can't repeat the same ID again on a HTML document. So it has to be unique on a page. Okay, now using these IDs we are going to style the elements. So as you can see, the ID of the second h3 tag is second, so we will use this second word to style the h3. So whenever, first of all, let me delete this piece of code. So whenever you want to style an ID in your style sheet, you first tell the browser by a hash symbol that you want to style an ID, and then you have to use the name of the ID, and you can see that the color has been green instead of pink. Now what we will do is, I'll open the curly braces and I'll write color red. Now I'll save and hit reload. There is some error. Let's see what it is. Second. So, yeah, right. There was some caching issue. So now you can see the second ID is red. Similarly, we can do this. We can add third and the font family to be Courier. Save. See, this is how you can individually control similar elements using CSS. Now let's move on to the second CSS selector, that is class. So now let's take one more scenario. What if I want the second and the third should have a font size of 40 pixels? And now you would say that I'll use the two IDs, that is second and third, and give them similar CSS properties. But don't you think it's an inefficient way of doing things? What if there are thousands of h3s on a web page and you want 600 to be of similar styling? In that case, will you be writing 600 different pieces of similar code? No, it's highly inappropriate. To solve this issue, we have a CSS selector called class. So a class is basically the selector which you assign to an HTML ID and brings them or group them into one particular group. So what we will do over here is, we will add a class name which will be same for the second and the third ID. To add a class name in HTML, we write it like this. Again, class 2 is an attribute. So let's add a class to our second h3 and let's name it as large underscore font. And similarly on the third h3, and let's name it as large underscore font. So now you can consider the same analogy. This guy has a roll number of second, this guy has a roll number of third, but both of them are studying in the same class, that is CSE second year. This is what it means. So now the faculty can individually give them projects by their roll numbers, or he can give them a collective project to a class. So what we are going to do is, first of all, we are saving this, and now we are going back to our CSS and we are adding some CSS properties to this particular class, large font. So to add CSS properties to a class, we use dot large font, and inside over here we will add font size 40 pixels. And now this property will be added to all the HTML elements who have the class of large font. Let's save this and reload. And now you can see the first S3 is as it is, and the second and third have larger fonts. So this is how you use CSS selectors to style your web page.